Hi guys, welcome back to 7 Aligned Podcast. I'm your host Juliana Holland, and this is episode 3, week 3. Today we are going to be focusing and covering spirituality again during this season, but today's episode focuses in on why spirituality is gaining so much popularity. In the past couple of years especially, so many more people have really awoken to their spiritual journey. Their third eye has opened and they have realized that they are spiritual beings and have turned into it a little bit more. Now, don't mind me if you're watching this and I'm looking at my arms and stuff. I made the mistake of having to film this episode at 8 p.m. so the sun's going down and the mosquitoes are going crazy, which is totally unfair because I work outside all day getting bit up by mosquitoes, and then I come home and I try to do something I like only to get bit up by more mosquitoes. So why is spirituality really popping off? Because it's not like all of a sudden there are more spiritual people out there. The reasons I came up with were the age of Aquarius, the war on drugs, the breakdown of society, the internet, the 5G shift, collectives, less prosecution, returning to our roots, reimagining the future, and COVID. So first, the age of Aquarius, if you haven't heard of it, there's a really popular song that kind of popularized this idea of what the age of Aquarius is. And what the age of Aquarius is there's different zodiac ages. Every astrologers approximate every about 2,000 years. So there's the age of Leo, an age of Pisces, and there's also an age of Aquarius. So while it can't be exactly pinpointed where and when the age of Aquarius begins, it's approximated to be about 2,000 years long, each age, and it's been very talked about how they think either the age of Aquarius has just started or has definitely started in this recent time frame. I mean, I could say the age of Aquarius began even in the 60s. There was a big spiritual shift in the 60s, but I think even more there's a spiritual shift now, which is crazy to think about because the 60s was like Woodstock. And if you really think about it, I really think time is just repeating itself, and I'll go into that more. But the age of Aquarius is an air sign. Air signs are known for being very intuitive, but also they're in their minds a lot. They're thinking a lot. They are spiritual beings because their heads are in the clouds. Aquarius are very unique individuals and they like doing their own thing, which I think goes hand in hand with spirituality. Quoted, the age of Aquarius is supposed to go hand in hand with the rise and fall of civilizations and cultural tendencies, the expansion of consciousness, and enlightenment. First of all, those last two things are literally definitions of spirituality that I went over in our first episode. So it makes sense that the age of Aquarius would come with a shifting of reality. I think the rise and fall of civilizations plus cultural tendencies can also be seen currently because what we're seeing is a need for change within, especially America's political structure. What we're seeing is the way that our government and society is currently set up is not one, equitable, equal, fair, or able to last very long. Capitalism, in some senses, is a root to a lot of problems because it's not sustainable at all in any department, environmental, mental, humanly. Therefore, with that, I think we do see a new way of living coming in the next 2,000 years. Because 2,000 years ago was Christ. So in the next 2,000 years, the Earth's going to look a whole lot different. It's going to be it's going to be a few degrees hotter because the Earth's going to be looking a lot different. Society's going to be looking a lot different. And humans will probably be looking a lot different too if we're able to survive our own doings. The age of Aquarius, they said that we have moved into that. Makes sense because there's been this conscious shift. That goes hand in hand with the 5G shift. When I talk about 5D shifts, they're dimensions of reality that humans understand. So originally we were in 3D. We've been in 3D for a while. 3D goes hand in hand with Christianity. It's 3D understandings of the world are exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of, you let your emotions affect you, you let outside obstacles affect you, and you let people make decisions over you. However, that shift into 5D, your third eye kind of opens and you realize that other things don't have to affect you as much unless you let them, and that you have a lot more control than you originally thought you did. They say that the 5G shift just happened recently in 2019. That goes hand in hand with the age of Aquarius. Whether the age of Aquarius has been in effect for 40 years or the age of Aquarius literally just happened with the 5G shift in 2019, they're both pretty recent things that have gone down. The 5G shift might affect you physically too. Ringing in the ears, excessive tiredness, waking up from 2 to 4 in the morning. Once you allow yourself to that shift, it is a lot less painful and easier on yourself. So if you haven't accepted that there's more to things than you think there is, you might save yourself a lot of pain. So the next thing I wrote down was the war on drugs. Comparing this back to the 60s. 60s was when marijuana started taking off. People started taking psychedelics. Other drugs started taking off too, but I'm really focusing on marijuana and psychedelics when I'm talking about drugs. With the war on drugs, the understanding of drugs changed too. People criminalized drugs, therefore they were bad, and the people who took them were junkies or poor, or people who you didn't want to associate with because they were criminals. What people forget is that these psychedelics weren't tested. There's no science tests done on them. There was no research really done on them, because just as they came out, they were criminalized and illegalized. And so people didn't know what they could do for a really long time. They just had these stories. And the thing is, with these psychedelics, are so individualized that, one person's story doesn't share the full effects of what it does for everyone. With current times and the war on drugs being lessened and the stigma around drugs, changing, there's another reason why we're seeing this growing of spiritual consciousness. More and more people are smoking marijuana all the time. While I don't want to tell you to go smoke weed if you don't want to, smoking weed does somehow change your perspective on life. I don't really know how to describe it, but you just learn to accept things, enjoy things a little bit more. I don't really know. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. Some people, it's not for everyone, but I enjoy smoking a nice joint every once in a while. It's relaxing, it's fun, it's intuitive, and a lot of the times I would get high and I would just think and write and create. It brought me closer to my higher conscience, but I also realized that, too much smoking was keeping me back from other things, because it was dulling my third eye at a certain point. I wasn't being able to see things as clearly in my head because I was clouding it with smoke. So it's finding that happy balance. And then psychedelics, they're easier to get a hold of, first of all. More and more people are talking about them. Like, there's documentaries and there's, YouTube and there's TikTok. So more and more people are trying them. And then more and more people are realizing that, one, they're fucking cool, and two, they actually do have spiritual effects on people. Now, I'm not saying everyone. I've never done acid before, so I know acid's less of a spiritual drug than shrooms because it's not natural. It's, created in a lab. But if you go back for all of human civilization, native communities have been doing trips, pretty much, like psychedelic trips, where they connect to their spirit guides or their ancestors or learn things from the universe. Ayahuasca, Dai, and all these other rituals too. The popularization of shrooms in 2020, and now the mushroom is on every single bag in Urban Outfitters, if you didn't realize that, is why people are more accepting and understanding that there are spiritual beings in consciousness, because people are more excessively being able to reach that, even if it is through a drug. So the breakdown of society I tagged along with capitalism. A lot of people, I think, are looking more into returning to their native roots. And when I say that, I mean any native community really has a somewhat tie to spirituality, because when you think about spirituality, it's, having a tie to the earth and your surroundings. Even now, Native communities, whether that's in any continent, Pacific Islanders, South Americans, Africans, or even Native Americans have these spiritual connections because they are closer to the earth just with their natural way of being. But the thing you realize is, the colonizers and the people who really have set in stone the way that life was for the past 2,000 years lost those connections with capitalism. Instead of taking what they needed, they take what they want, and they decided that more is better, and therefore they conquered land and they stole resources, and then through that they manufactured goods. And by learning how to manufacture goods, quickly and effectively, we were able to have more things. And by being able to have more things, we were told that, buying makes you happy, shopping makes you happy, therefore you should buy things when you're sad. And so now we all have addictions to shopping, but we're also told we need to buy every newest technology item. And things aren't created to last 50 years. Pots and pans are meant to last 5 years, and then you have to get a new one. Things didn't used to be this way. People used to use things their whole lives. I also think that people are changing their minds because they're starting to reimagine the future. A lot of people are realizing that what's happening now is not working. Realizing that you deserve more than choosing the lesser of the two evils is a step towards a new political freedom. Now, how much longer capitalism and our system has, I don't know. I feel a revolution coming in my bones. Hopefully it's in my lifetime. I'd love to witness it. But if not, in the next two. The internet, you can't say that it hasn't played a part in this change, because people are able to spread information so much easier. You're able to Google what every tarot card meaning means. You're able to Google what your zodiac means. You're able to figure out what your birth chart is so easily. And you're also able to access all these videos on spirituality. Listen to this podcast. I'm able to post it for you. Therefore, I'm sharing my ideas with you. Before the internet, I would have to either write a book and you'd have to buy it and read the book, or I would have to verbally tell every single person I wanted to what I thought, which is literally what all of humanity did before the internet. And spirituality was popularized back then. So the fact that more people are able to talk about it and mass people are allowed to listen to it, of course there's more people that are going to turn to it because it's becoming more popular. I think trends, especially on TikTok, are another important reason why we're seeing spirituality grow. We're seeing every single person gets tarot cards on their For You page, whether you're spiritual and you know how to read tarot cards or not. And that says something about what people are talking about. You're able to learn more about crystals because more people are talking about them. With that, the trends aid in more conversations being brought up in the popularization of it. See how it's just all a circle? It's all growing, and more people are talking about it, and so more people are thinking about it, and so more people are turning to it. And that's how things become popular. Then you have to think about it that it's like any other period of history. I totally would have been persecuted for anything I've said on this podcast and the way that I live my life. I would have totally been burnt at the stake. Now I'm able to talk about this because of freedom of speech and freedom of religion. People are much more accepting, and therefore people are much more able to express themselves fully. And with that comes expressing your ideas on the world with others without fear of what people will think. Therefore, again, if people are less afraid, the more people are going to not be afraid to think about if they're spiritual or if this is something they want to pursue. And then the last but not least, I have COVID, because with COVID, we were given a year and a half of alone time, of time that we really were thinking about ourselves and the world and what the world is and how the hell we got to where we were. With that, I think a lot of people realized that they didn't want to live the way that they did before COVID, and they were searching for something more. And with the trends and the shift and the age all coming together in one, it's like the stars all aligned for people to wake up and realize that they wanted to view the world through a new lens. And that's exactly what they do when they turn to spirituality. Without it, people wouldn't have been given this time to not be afraid of what society had to say. which it was a terrible time, and people were afraid, and people were sad, and people died, and may they rest in peace. But people were able to grow and change themselves during that time, and I think we should all be thankful for that a little bit. Overall, spirituality is our natural way of thinking. It's the way people thought at the beginning of organized society. People relied on astronomers for when they should attack, people for when they should marry, and I think people forget about that a lot. They look to the sky for a lot of answers. With the downfall of organized religion like Christianity, plus time to ourselves in which we were forced to deal with our thoughts and left searching for answers, more and more people turn to the sky again for answers. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please like and subscribe, and listen to next week's episode as well. Check out my Patreon. It's $5 a month. I have exclusive new videos on there and tarot card readings too. Follow my social medias, and